Hello everyone, Al Lauder here, and today I am back with a policy guide for Industry Idle. And so firstly, we are going to talk about how to obtain policy points, which is what you need to actually get the policies to work. We're going to then talk about some of the pretty much always good policies, and then we're going to talk about some of the more situational policies, and that will be the video. So before the video, really appreciate it if you could either subscribe or hit the like button. Thanks. So first of all, how to obtain policy points. Now if you click over to your policy center in-game, you're going to see level at the top, then multiplier, then culture to policy point. And what this does is it converts 10 culture into 1 policy point. But it can only do this a certain amount, so assuming you have no Swiss upgrades for the production multiplier, every second it can convert 100 culture into 10 policy points. And so if you're making like 60 culture per second, then you obviously are doing fine. But if you're making, let's say, 120 culture per second, you probably want to upgrade your policy center so that it can transfer an adequate amount of culture into policy points. And so from here, we're going to talk about how to actually get the culture. And so first of all, I'll go into the 2 free-to-play ways, and then I'll move on to the 2 DLC ways. So the 2 free-to-play ways are the Colosseum, which takes 1 clothes and 1 shoe, and it makes 1 culture. Then the book publisher, which takes 6 paper and 8 coal, and produces 1 culture and 1 book. And so out of these 2, I definitely prefer the book publisher, and that's always been what I've used. I've used the Colosseum a few times, but never been too happy with the result. And so I have a number of reasons for why I prefer the book publisher. A, if you're early on in the game, books are worth a solid amount of money. In some cities, they can go for up to 8,000, whereas in others, they can still hold a somewhat respectable 2,000 or 3,000. And so books have a number of uses as well. They can be used in schools to make science, so that covers both culture and science with 1 short tree. They're also necessary to make operating systems, which is an important step on the technology tree. And then also, I feel like since you get 2 in 1 value, it's a better use of a permit than the Colosseum is. And a lot of the time, you're going to have enough culture for what you want to do. So even if the Colosseum's a little more efficient, I definitely prefer the book publisher. And now for the DLC part. There's universities, which take 1 fashion, which I don't get. Why do you need that for university? But anyways, and 1 PC, and makes 15 culture and 15 science. Straight up, universities are pretty OP. I've only got the DLC today, but I really love universities and think they're pretty much broken. And then there's also the Opera House, which takes 1 music and turns it into 10 culture. I don't think that's nearly as good. I think it's better to go for university if you are going the DLC route. And so now, onto the actual policies. And so first I would like to talk about policy cost. And so there are 4 tiers of policies, and each one scales with the cost of policy, how many you have on. So first, there are the free policies, and their cost per second is 0, and they do not count as using a policy. So basically, they're not really a policy, because they don't count as using a policy for any of the other policies. And yeah, then there are 10 cost policies, which cost 10 policy points per second for each policy you have on. 20 cost policies, which cost 20 policy points per second for each policy you have on. And then finally, the big expensive 40 cost policies, which cost 40 policy points a second for each policy you have on. So when considering which ones you want on, please consider cost, and if you build a lot of them, the cost will snowball. And so first I will talk about the generally good policies, and these are the doubler policies. And so there are 6 of these: heavy iron, Silicon Valley, industrial revolution, aluminum smelting, and deforestation, and finally supercharged oil well. And each of these doubles the production of a tier 0 mine for the cost of something like they use double fuel or double power or 50% more of each. And these seemed like significant drawbacks, but they're not really at all. They're totally worth doing. These are my favorite policies, and they are 20 cost ones. So there's heavy iron, which doubles iron. Silicon Valley doubles silicon. Uh, Industrial revolution doubles coal. Aluminum smelting doubles aluminum. Supercharged oil well doubles oil. Deforestation doubles wood. And so I would say these are the bread and butter of the policy center. They're the main kind of just strictly good policies. And those are all free to play, no DLC needed. However, there is one, I would say one very good DLC policy, and that would be slow down to save up. And what slow down to save up does is transportation speed reduced by 25%, but fuel cost is also reduced by 25%. So I think this is just a straight up good policy. But other than that, I wouldn't say there are any other strictly good expansion pack policies. And so now we're on to the situational ones. And we're going to start off with AI Circuit. AI Circuit's a free-to-play policy, costs 10 policy points per second, and it means circuit foundries use aluminum instead of copper. Now, the point of this one is that it allows you to build circuit foundries on maps without copper. That's the use of it. If your map has copper, you should not be using this policy. It's not worth it at all. Then there is, I can't say this at all, but like Chiron, which makes it so chromium alloy plants do not use lithium, but instead use 2 iron inside. And so what, instead, not inside. I'm sorry about that. And the use of this is twofold. First of all, it allows you to get titanium on maps without titanium or lithium, and it also allows you to get chromium on maps without chromium or lithium. And this is important because titanium is needed for some of the space stuff, and then chromium is needed to build internet. There are 2 more free-to-play and 2 more DLC policies that I will cover in this guide. And these policies are also situational. First off, you have the World Fair, which effectively quadruples the effectiveness of the wholesale center by doubling the order size and doubling the order speed. Now, the best time to use this is right at the start of a new city, as you can spend all your money buying the resources needed to fill the orders. You'll get the money back and some, which can help jumpstart your city with that and the research points. It only costs 20 a second per policy, and since it'll be your only policy on, the policy points you'll get back from the wholesale orders will more than cover its operating costs. So it effectively runs for free even if you have no culture generation. And then the next policy I would like to talk about is called Adjacent Bonus Plus. And what it says is adjacent bonus does not require more input, but uses more power and is only 50% as effective. So what that means is your adjacency bonus is going to be cut in half, but the things that go in to your plants that are being affected by the adjacency bonus are no longer going to be increased, but the output will still be increased. So this policy is pretty amazing. I like it a lot. But here's the thing, is it does cost 40 a second per policy you have on, and additionally, you kind of have to get it pretty early to build around it, because if you turn it on in a later game city, it can cause a ton of deficit. So just be aware of that, and if it doesn't work on your current city, I implore you to try it on your next one. And then our final 2 ones are DLC policies. that both happen to cost 20 per policy you have, and these policies are the sun never sets and the wind rises, and what they do is make solar plants and wind turbines work 100% of the time, but are also less effective. And so personally, I don't think this matters, because past your first cities, when you're using coal for other things and don't want to be bothered about learning with how to get more things, I think that using coal power or uranium power is always going to be much better than using natural, good for the planet power, because they just produce so much more, and it helps a lot with lowering the amount of permits you use. Anyways, that has been my policy guide. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Subscribe.